dramatic? Raise your hand, please. Yeah. Dramatic. Why is it dramatic? But then what happens after that?
Oh no, they fought over that.
So what do we know that the characters in the story don't know?
We don't know each other. That Chris's sister, Marcus is Chris' enemy, and Chris' sister don't know that, and they fall in love.
Ah, very good. So go ahead and do number 4 and 5 by yourself. Number 4 and 5 by yourself. That should only take about a minute and a half. You need to see pencils moving in your hand on the paper. Do this real quickly. Just write what type it is and why you think it is that type. Okay, should be finishing that up in the next 10 seconds. Okay, so if you're on the other page, go ahead and turn back to number 4. I am so excited to return to school for final exams after spring break, Sophia said, rolling her eyes very quickly and all together. Is that verbal or dramatic? Verbal. Verbal, very good. Number 5, an artist wants to get his wife a special Christmas present, but he doesn't have any extra money. He decides to sell his beautiful handmade paintbrushes to buy her a special diamond charm for her charm bracelet. Meanwhile, his wife is also trying to come up with enough money to get him something perfect. She goes to a pawn shop to sell her charm bracelet so that she has enough money to buy him the oil paints he always looks at but never buys because of the cost. Altogether, verbal or dramatic? Dramatic.
It's like that story, right, where the wife has to buy the something so she shaves off her hair.
Yeah, very good.
Oh, yeah. Watch.
Oh, yeah. Right. So we're gonna read a story called The Sniper. I forgot to put the author's name on here, but I believe his last name is O'Flaherty. I think he's an Irish author. I'm not really. Oh yeah, he is, because this is about the Irish. Okay, so what you are going to have to do at the end is write a short answer response to why the end of the story is ironic. And the end of the story is ironic, I'll give you a hint, because of a situational irony. He intends to do one thing, or he intends to have one effect, and the actual effect that the sniper has is different than even we as an audience know, or he knows. So all eyes where it says the long June twilight. The long June twilight. Eyes on your feet. Jennifer? Eyes on your feet. The long June twilight faded into night. Dublin lay enveloped in darkness, but for the dim light of the moon that shone through fleecy clouds, casting a pale light as of approaching dawn over the streets and the dark waters of the Liffey. Around the beleaguered four courts, the heavy guns roared. Here and there through the city, machine guns and rifles broke the silence of the night spasmodically, like dogs barking on lone farms. Republicans and Free Staters were waging civil war. So a little bit of a background information. There has been tension and fighting and civil war in Ireland for a very long time. And this takes place, I really am embarrassed to say, I have not been following how But I feel like the tensions have decreased lately. But that's all we need to know.
Wait, Belgrade is a city, right? Not the guy.
On a rooftop near O'Connell Bridge, a Republican sniper lay watching. Beside him lay his rifle, and over his shoulders was slung a pair of field glasses. His face was the face of a student, thin and ascetic, but his eyes had the cold gleam of the fanatic. They were deep and thoughtful, the eyes of a man who is used to looking at death. He was eating a sandwich hungrily. He had eaten nothing since morning. He had been too excited to eat. He finished the sandwich, and taking a flask of whiskey from his pocket, he took a short draught. Then he returned the flask to his pocket. So, we probably don't know what the word drought means, but Graciela, based on context, what do you think the word drought means? Taking a flask of whiskey from his pocket, he took a short draught. Yeah, he took a little short sip. Then he returned the flask to his pocket. He paused for a moment, considering whether he should risk a smoke. It was dangerous. The flash might be seen in the darkness, and there were enemies watching. He decided to take the risk. Placing a cigarette between his lips, he struck a match, inhaled the smoke hurriedly, and put out the light. Almost immediately, a bullet flattened itself against the parapet of the roof. The sniper took another whiff and put out the cigarette. Then he swore softly and crawled away to the left. Cautiously, he raised himself and peered over the parapet. There was a flash and a bullet whizzed over his head. He dropped immediately. He had seen the flash. It came from the opposite side of the street. He rolled over the roof to a chimney stack in the rear and slowly drew himself up behind it until his eyes were level with the top of the parapet. There was nothing to be seen, just the dim outline of the opposite housetop against the blue sky. His enemy was under cover. Just then, an armored car came across the bridge and advanced slowly up the street. It stopped on the opposite side of the street, 50 yards ahead. The sniper could hear the dull panting of the motor. His heart beat faster. It was an enemy car. He wanted to fire, but he knew it was useless. His bullets would never pierce the steel that covered the gray monster. Then, round the corner of a side street came an old woman, her head covered by a tattered shawl. She began to talk to the man in the turret of the car. She was pointing to the roof where the sniper lay, an informer. The turret opened. A man's head and shoulders appeared, looking toward the sniper. The sniper raised his rifle and fired. The head fell heavily on the turret wall. The woman darted toward the side street. The sniper fired again. The woman whirled around and fell with a shriek into the gutter. Suddenly, from the opposite roof, a shot rang out and the sniper dropped his rifle with a curse. The rifle clattered to the roof. The sniper thought the noise would wake the dead. He stooped to pick the rifle up. He couldn't lift it. His forearm was dead. "I'm hit," he muttered. Dropping flat onto the roof, he crawled back to the parapet. With his left hand, he felt the injured right forearm. The blood was oozing through the sleeve of his coat. There was no pain, just a deadened sensation, as if the arm had been cut off. Quickly, he drew his knife from his pocket, opened it on the breastwork of the parapet, and ripped open the sleeve. There was a small hole where the bullet had entered. On the other side, there was no hole. The bullet had lodged in the bone. It must have fractured it. He bent the arm below the wound. The arm bent back easily. He ground his teeth to overcome the pain. Then, taking out his field dressing, he ripped open the packet with his knife. He broke the neck of the iodine bottle and let the bitter fluid drip into the wound. A paroxysm of pain swept through him. He placed the cotton wadding over the wound and wrapped the dressing over it. He tied the ends with his teeth. Then he lay still against the parapet, and, closing his eyes, he made an effort of will to